Today's guest speaks Danish, is an adventurous wine drinker, and has 29 years of experience within the trade show industry. He also happens to be the CEO of PM Grow Summit and Four and Half.
If you guessed John Bykowski, you are absolutely right. We asked him to join the podcast to talk about PM Grow Summit 2021, which is coming up in January.
He'll walk us through the concept and theme behind PM Grow Summit, the decision of going virtual for 2021, and also why this conference is unlike any other conference you've been to or could imagine. So stick around and enjoy the episode.
This episode is sponsored by PM Grow Summit 2021, a conference where successful property managers network and learn from world-class thought leaders. The fourth PM Grow Summit will be a virtual conference, but it's not like any virtual conference you've experienced before. Our platform gives event participants an experience as close to an in-person conference as possible. For example, create your own personal avatar and wander the online, three-dimensional world of the conference, where you can network, hear our expert keynote speakers, attend workshops, and more, all from the comfort and safety of your own home. Join hundreds of property managers and experts in the industry on January 20th, 21st, and 22nd. Get a sneak peek and get tickets at pmgrowsummit.com. That's pmgrowsummit.com.
John. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you for joining us. Today we are talking about PM Grow Summit 2021. So we're just going to dive right in. For those of our listeners that do not know what PM Grow Summit is, can you tell us a little bit about it?
Absolutely. PM Grow Summit was designed from the beginning to be about the business of property management, running the business. How do you grow, obviously? How do you scale? How do you run that business effectively? So whereas we had gone to NARPM conferences and seen all the great content that they have there, but a lot of that content is devoted to managing properties. PM Grow,
Operations.
exactly, operations, laws, and stuff like that that have to do with the nitty gritty, the nuts and bolts of managing properties, and stuff that is good not just for broker owners but for property managers themselves. It's there for property managers. PM Grow was always focused on the owners and maybe the marketing and sales teams of these property management companies. And the idea was for us to bring in the best ideas from outside the industry and start to leverage them within the industry. The first year that we did it, when we were down in Florida, we were showcasing, the power of video. Video had been used for quite some time in other industries, but it still hadn't really been taken up too much within the property management industry.
By video, do you mean content marketing?
I mean content marketing.
Video.
Absolutely.
Well, content marketing doesn't have to be video, but when you're talking about the concept of video, you're talking about marketing with video.
Yeah,
Or
but
through video.
the power of video was a large part of the keynote speaking at that one. Further on, talking about moving away from having the broker owner doing the sales, getting a BDM, training the BDM, and things like that. So this year, however, one of the things that happened on so many occasions, like, oh my God, there's so many great ideas. Unfortunately, I just don't have the time to implement them. Great. So for this year's PM Grow, the theme has been this whole time removing barriers to growth. Like, what can you do to free up your time, to free up the time of the people on your team? How can you make it easier for you to grow?
And that's very important. Just the fact that you touched on people getting all of these ideas and not being able to implement them, because I hear that so regularly. Like, as in the past, as an account manager for Four and Half, marketing agency for property managers, shameless plug, we would get people contacting us being so excited, so just pumped up after going to PM Grow or other conferences where they get ideas that they aren't able to then do anything with it. It's like a peak, but then a valley, and then a valley for a while, and then another peak. So I really like the concept of that.
Yeah, and I do want to add that I've gotten this feedback from previous attendees of the previous PM Grow Summits where they have an idea, they kind of try to implement it, it just doesn't stick. And I believe this concept of removing barriers to growth, I believe also kind of touches on that. Like, what are things within your organization that maybe is causing those techniques to not stick or just not work for you or your market?
Yeah, so it could be time, or it could be just how to execute it. Is that something that we might get out of this year?
Some of that, yeah. Some of it is going to be financial. We've got Greg Crabtree coming. He is one of the people behind the NARPM accounting standards. He helped the people over at I'm sorry, Profit Coach. I know. I was it's Jeremy at Rent Scale. It's
I
Daniel.
know it's all of them.
I always got. I got to remember that. But helped put that together, and so he's going to be there, and he's going to do a talk, and then he's also going to be available for Q&A. We also have a session that's going to talk about, how to lead in such a way to get your team to follow along and get people to not be such naysayers and buy in to new ideas and new methods and stuff like that, which is something that always happens as
Everybody
a leader.
struggles with it.
Everybody. I mean, I know, present company excluded, of course, that I have struggled with this as well within my own company. It happens all the time. So it is something that we want to do. Now, there's absolutely still going to be growth content in there. I mean, we've not thrown everything out there, but one of the things that we also wanted to have is what are some ways that you can leverage the stuff that you've been learning from PM Grow after the past number of years and this year as well.
Yeah. And so, the biggest development for PM Grow 2021 actually is that PM Grow decided to go virtual rather than an in-person conference. Can you give our listeners a bit more information about that decision and what that means for attendees and sponsors?
Absolutely. Decided, of course, being forced into, let's face it, there is no 100% replacement for an in-person conference. And when March came around and then April and things were so terrible this year and we saw the conference looming, of course, sales stopped. People weren't wanting to buy tickets. They didn't know if they were going to be able to go, which they were not able to go. And it was funny when we pushed it out to January, some people were like, that, oh, good, that's plenty of time. And other people are like, that's crazy in the future. We're going to be back having conventions in June. Of course, here we are. And the reality of the situation is with our planning right now, nobody can promise us that we'll even be legally allowed to have more than 10 people in a room together in Austin in January. So we had to move it to be virtual. Now it was a tough decision. We pushed it out so far because we didn't want to go that way. But in discussing it with a number of different people in the property management community, it's like, no, nobody really prefers to go to a virtual conference. However, education has to continue. Mm-hmm. There is still a need for what PM Grow is providing. Absolutely. And so we decided we were going to move forward with it. But we also wanted to take a look and say, we have sat in so many Zoom meetings so far. It's like, how can we go beyond it being a glorified series of Zoom meetings? What can we do to try and get it to be more like a real PM Grow show?
Get people engaged.
100%. Absolutely.
Yeah. And not so long ago, PM Grow Summit sent out this survey, right, to kind of get a gauge on what people are thinking, what their expectations were on a virtual conference. Can you share a bit more information about the insights that came from that survey?
Pretty much everybody would prefer it to be live, but not right now. There are a certain number of people that were willing to go to a convention, or at least thought that, hey, January, we might be okay. But the majority of people lean towards having to do it virtually in some way or another. So we were not at all certain about that. And also the people enough people now have gone to virtual conferences and have gotten something out of it that there was also, it's like, yeah, if it was virtual, I would attend. And And so from that, we got enough of a go ahead. We're like, okay, yeah, we're going to need to make this decision now while we still have the time to make a quality show and not do something that's just slapped together last minute.
And one interesting thing I do want to know, in a previous conversation, we were talking about how if it did become an in-person conference, the thing that that greatly differentiates a virtual conference from a real in-person conference is like the face-to-face impromptu conversations. You walk up to people, you strike up a conversation, you shake hands,
The
and
energy.
the energy. But like with COVID, even if enough people were to go to Austin, we have to socially distance people.
I am
They
not
cannot
hugging
approach.
anybody if I'm in
Yeah, you
Austin.
can't shake hands.
And I'm a
People have
hugger.
to wear masks, and you can't really have those close
Yeah.
interactions because of the 6 feet social distancing. So it's almost like damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah. People are like, well, it's not as good communicating virtually, right? It's not as easy. Okay, that's fine. But if you're in person and you can't see the lower half of my face
6 feet away.
6 feet away, there's a lot of that missing as well. And Brittany, you make a joke of it, but this is a hugging industry. This is we all the time we go up and we're happy to see each other. We want to do that. So, I mean, that wasn't going to happen anyway. So that also helped with the decision. But it also
then you put people in awkward situations too, where I think they probably might feel uncomfortable, but then they don't want to offend anybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also we have different levels of comfort in terms of how close we get to people, and if not everyone is on the same level, then like you said, Brittany, we open ourselves to these really awkward situations. So John, going back to the topic of virtual versus in person, like what key elements of like an in-person conference did you and the team kind of look to keep to make a virtual event better than like a glorified Zoom meeting?
So now, naturally, because we were as far along as we were, we had already locked in a lot of the content, right? Like 80% of the content, we've had our keynote speakers and all that. But the beauty of it was that although there are certain things that we will have to change because they don't work as well in a virtual environment, the content is going to stay the same. So that's great. And that is one of the core things. We're going there for education. Some of that is going to be from the professional speakers and from the industry speakers, but then some of it as well is from the conversations that you start up and the people that you bump into and meet and share notes with when you're at the show. So an important part to us was, can we replicate that in some way? Can we replicate it perfectly? No. But can we go somewhere to replicate it? Because if we can't replicate it at all, if all it is a series of videos, then we're going to go and we're going to push it out again. But we believe that we have found a platform that is going to allow you to interact with other people. And I have not seen this one within the industry before, right? NARPM did a good job in that you were able to sort of get into video conferences and audio conferences with different people, but it wasn't completely natural. Right. And of course, nothing will be completely natural, but we wanted to get even closer to that as much as we could.
It was actually inspiring to see what NARPM was able to do. And so
in a short period of time.
Yeah, in a short period of time. That was amazing.
Very short. Yes.
And I think like that inspired PM Grow to go out there and see like, great, like technology's kind of catching up to the reality of the situation. And so is there another step we could potentially take the industry?
Yeah.
So the idea of, I want to be able to walk up to somebody and strike up a conversation, or if I see some people talking that I know and I like or I respect, could I walk over there and sort of maybe just listen in a bit and try and join the conversation? With the formats that we've seen so far, that wasn't possible. So we wanted to try and find a platform where you could do that, and I think we did. There is a good chance of that. So yeah, that was an important stuff for us. So there's the content that way, and there's the community that way. And even for that matter, the joking around that goes on and the stuff, I'm not going to be buying you a drink at this one because I'm not going to be there, but sitting there with a glass may be possible as well while you're connecting with people. So yeah,
That's fun. And so how can people get to walk up to other people in a virtual environment?
okay. So then talking about the platform that we've chosen is one that you hear about gamification all the time, right? And virtual worlds and stuff like that. We are investing in a platform that is a virtual conference setting. It is a virtual campus, you could say. There are separate buildings. There is an outside. There's a soccer field that you can go to. There is an exhibit hall that you go to. You walk through the door. There are booths in front of you. There are island booths. There are inline booths. There are people in those booths that you will walk down the aisle and look. And if there's somebody there would be an exhibitor. If they're manning their booth, there would be their avatar sitting there that you can go and strike up a conversation with them. Or if you're an exhibitor and you see people walking around, you see one of your friends walk by, you can step up to them and start a conversation. These are things that absolutely can be done. There are areas with chairs and tables. And the way it in particular works is there's like a little blue halo around, say, a booth or a chair and table. And when you step into that area, it becomes a more private conversation. You're talking as a group. But if you're just out in the world walking around, it was amazing when it was being shown to us. I mean, not amazing. I've been through it before in video games as well, but like I'll be walking somewhere and there'll be a group of people talking. And as I walk by them, the conversation gets louder. I can hear them clearly. And as I walk past, the volume goes down again. So you can, again, like I said, like some people are talking, you can stand by that group and hear what they're saying and join in the conversation. If I'm an exhibitor, I can shout out, "Hey, Bob, how you doing?"
So it really is a virtual world. It's not just a virtual interface to connect with people.
Yes.
It is a world in itself. So how do people know if they have the technology to use this? Do they need a special computer, or can it be on an iPad? What do we know?
Your best experience is absolutely with a desktop computer. We don't recommend doing it on an iPad because it's an application you download onto the computer, but they have designed it so it can be done on a wide range of computers. So the graphics look like they would look in like the Nintendo Wii did, right? It's higher level than that. So you're going to have an avatar, right? There's guys, there's girls. You change the hair, the color, the hat, the clothing that you're wearing, etc. You can personalize it, and there are people out speaking directly to. If you, I don't know, wore a cowboy hat to every single convention, you can wear a cowboy hat in this one too, and you know who I'm speaking about. If you're listening, I'm talking to you. So yeah, you can personalize in that way. But it can be done on a broad range of computers, and you can scale the graphics up or down depending on how powerful.
So it really is like a video game then, because you can if people. Not that I've ever played a computer game.
Yeah.
Not that I've ever played a PC game.
Yeah.
But with most world life PC games, you do have toggles that you can control, saying, "Oh, don't have the most powerful computer." I can toggle it all the way down, because I do know, I mean, for our property managers that don't game, that would be my question. I don't need a super powerful computer for my day-to-day tasks, so I don't really have one. It does everything that I need. So what is the software going to do?
Yeah, you don't need a special video card or all that stuff. And for people that are worried about, oh my God, this sounds confusing, first of all, we're there to help you do that. I mean, I have the company that we've contracted with to run the convention, they're going to have technical people on site. I am also going to have a whole buttload of 4.5 people on site. They don't know it yet, but they're going to be there. And wandering around, make it easy for people to spot them. And when once you've loaded the program, thank you, the platform, the application, whatever, and you enter, there is a welcome area that you will be put in. There will be somebody standing there to greet you during regular hours. And it was when I first logged into it to try it out, it was odd to me to have somebody say, "Hey, John, hey, if you have any problems," but that literally we're going to be there. And
They know you're there.
They know you're there. And
Can I turn it off? That's the thing. What if you don't want people? Is there a pause, or you know what I mean?
Well, you certainly can turn off, you can turn off your microphone. You are not, they're not seeing you on video like this. They're seeing your avatar. That is something that can be enabled, but you are not required to be like on video this whole time. So don't worry about that.
That's a good thing that you mentioned. There are places within the world where you can do that. So
absolutely
you can just walk around.
Yes.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So it's not just a show floor. So just like you would at a normal convention, now admittedly, like you could on other ones, if you want to go to a menu and do the drop-down menu and just be popped out of where you are and jumped right into the auditorium, you can do that. But the other thing is you can like walk out of the exhibit hall, wave to a friend or two on the way by, and walk into the auditorium and sit at a seat and watch the presentation. There will be an avatar stand. You'll be inside an auditorium. There'll be an avatar on stage, but there will be, like there was there would be at normal shows, 3 screens. You'll have the slideshow up there. You'll have the video of the person that's speaking up there. So when there's a presentation, you're not going to be, the person's avatar will be there, but you'll see somebody's face there talking to you. But the beauty of the avatar system is the person that is giving the talk is standing there. They can see the audience. You can raise your hand. If there's a Q&A section, you can literally raise your hand, and there's an interface there that they can ask, and you can ask questions. And this is at the large format and even the smaller format, because there are rooms like we would have breakout rooms. There's smaller rooms, there's boardrooms, there's offices. One of the things that we're going to be able to offer our attendees and our exhibitors in particular, it's like, hey, would you like to have a room that you can go to? And you can do some of this in your booth as well, absolutely. But if you want a room to go to have private conversations, that you can share your screen and interact with the customer there, or turn on your video or whatever, you can absolutely
or just network with a small group of friends.
Network with a smaller group. One of the things that I was thinking of, if normally you would not take your line of battle troops over to a convention. It's too expensive. You're paying for airfare, you're paying for a hotel, etc. This one here, you can have somebody that's sitting at their home, and if there's an issue that you want to go over with, like, oh, you've got an issue, great, go to this room. You can share screens there. You can talk. It can be private, and it doesn't. It's included in the price of the sponsorship that you've had, and so you can have people that normally you wouldn't take to a convention at that convention virtually. And that means, like, for our clientele that are, say, that have virtual assistants, you would never bring somebody in from the Philippines or Mexico or India or wherever. But if you've got somebody that you would like people to interact with, okay, the hours are off, but you can have them at that show easily, cheaply, legally.
Well, right. Because the idea of we still call them virtual assistants, but so many people in our community, their team, they're employees, they're team members.
Team members, yep.
We've realized over the last couple of years that you can get excellent, competent people at a little bit of a more affordable price, just because the cost of living is more affordable in the area that they're from. So I like that idea, because we do. Personally ourselves, we have some overseas team members, and we love getting them involved in more of the day-to-day, so they see the full picture of what we do as a company compared to just knowing what your tasks are. So I really like that idea.
Yeah. So one of the difficulties in presenting a virtual conference is
we don't want to prevent it.
Let's try not to prevent. Yeah. Is time, right? How much time is somebody going to sit in front of a computer, and how do you bring value? How do you get value out of it? Well, one of the ways is we reduce the amount of hours that we're asking somebody to sit in front of a computer for the show time itself, but we have content there that extends beyond the amount of time. Like there will be more content for the show than there are hours to have the show, because we will have simultaneous things going on. But the beauty is, unlike other times, since all of this stuff is it's online, it's being recorded, you don't have to worry about missing certain things. You can pick and choose. I want to see this keynote speech, and then after that keynote speech, I want to go to the Q&A session with Greg Crabtree. I want to be there, and he's able to share his screen, and you're able to talk with him, be specific about things. he'll be there for that. But then because of spending that time, if there's something that you're not attending, that's fine. Just like at other PM Grow conferences, that content is available afterwards. So,
but usually you have to wait a little bit longer. Is there going to be a wait? Do you know what I mean? Because I feel like typically you have to wait a couple weeks or something because they put these videos together.
So I don't have an exact answer for that right now, but it's going to be a shorter amount of time because the video will be made in advance. Whereas normally we've done the show, now we've got to boom, 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 make videos out of it. We'll already have that content. So it is going to speed up that process. But that is available for people, for your team members, absolutely. And so that was the way that we were going to do it. We were going to have to make sure that during the time that you are there is always something going on that you can be involved with. But if you want to spend that time socializing with other people, you haven't truly, okay, the Q&A sessions, yeah, those ones you might miss because that's the live content there. But the keynotes, the talks, etc., information presented by exhibitors, that stuff that's all going to be there for you to be able to access outside the specific time of the show. Because the important part is people have to get value out of this. The attendees have to get value out of this. And actually, as the price point is being brought down because it's no longer an in-person show and you don't have to travel there, people that have never attended a PM Grow show before, this is a great opportunity because you will be able to get the value that you get, a taster version of it, and at a much lower price point. And for the exhibitors, I was worried, right? I have been worried. I have been to virtual events and I have not gotten value out of it. But as time has gone on and I have found out how to leverage our team in virtual events, we've gotten better and better at it. The reality is that 4.5 got greater value at a significantly lower cost from this year's virtual event than we did from the Arizona event last year. Even if I take cost out of it, it was still a better show for us. When I add cost back in, the amount of money that I spent on that show is like because I took out airfare and travel for multiple people.
Alcohol for some.
Alcohol, yeah, my alcohol consumption, the liver damage I've done. These things, like the per lead and per connection cost was far lower, and we are going to be there, holding the hand of our exhibitors and helping them get as much out of this as possible. Because you absolutely can get business out of a virtual conference. Virtual conferences weren't invented after COVID started. Right? They had already been happening. They'd been happening in particular. Their niche was if it had to be an international event and one that, let's say the price point, like you can have an international event easily if everybody's a CEO of a big company, everybody can afford it. But what if you have to have an international event where people are teachers or where they're students and they can't afford to travel? This is why these virtual events were made. These are international campuses. And for that matter, when I was checking out the software, the virtual campus that we're going to, it's people from all over the world speaking different languages. I came up and said hello to somebody and they haltingly told me that, yeah, they don't speak English. And so
that's cool.
It's really cool is that it's
well, and that brings me to a question though. So these virtual conferences were happening prior to COVID. Do you think that post-COVID, because there are smaller property management companies that want to overcome barriers to growth, but they wouldn't be able to normally afford a normally priced or normal PM Grow ticket event. So, and you don't need to speak for PM Grow specifically, but in general, do you think, and you can speak to PM Grow specifically if you want, but do you think coming out of this, conferences will be doing more of a hybrid things? I know those were things that were getting talked about and things that people have done maybe already in the PM industry.
Mm-hmm. So for PM Grow specifically, since we do it's on a national basis, not an international basis, and our clientele are generally speaking the broker owners, the owners of these companies, and especially we're more attractive to the people that are very focused on growth. They're willing to spend on growth. They understand they need to spend on it. The live conference is not a barrier for them, right? It was a case of us getting the word out, making it worth their while. However, that being said, there are a number of people who purchase our videos after the conference that haven't attended the conference. For those of you that are not aware, If you attend the conference, the video package is included. You get early access to that. However, after a certain amount of time, we do open up access to PM Grow Talks later on, and we do get some traction on that as well. Now, nowhere near as great as the show itself, but there is. So is there a demand for getting this kind of content virtually? There is. And
but there's always been it sounds like it has always been available even without having a virtual conference.
It has been. And if there was a virtual option for me to attend, maybe one of the Australian conferences or something in England, I would be interested in checking that out and to learn things about the industries over there. Mm-hmm. So, is this going to say that, well, PM Grow is going to be virtual from now on? No. There's just simply too much value in meeting face-to-face. And it's a hell of a lot of fun. But we can still do something in situations like this. There's a chance this will not be the last disaster or pandemic that keeps people from meeting in person. But as time goes on, the options for us to meet virtually get more and more sophisticated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds awesome. And also, I do want to note that, now that we're all living in a world where multiple people have to juggle multiple hats at home, right? If you have kids at home, for example, and then you're trying to run your business from home, attending a 3-day conference may be too much, right? Especially if it's during work hours where you're getting phone calls. You have to homeschool your kids, help them through Zoom. And so having the ability to just pick maybe the live events that you want to attend and a few kind of content pieces you want to absorb right at that moment and leave the rest for when the kids are already settled in bed or maybe over the weekend after the conference, I think is super valuable.
It is. And definitely you can get up and you can step away. Absolutely. And the idea that, the Zoom tiredness, the Zoom fatigue that we're getting, am I going to want to be online? Well, as Marie, darn well, when we went in and got a chance to just try this and look at it, when we turned around after we looked around and we tried a couple of things, we didn't even really get into depth in it. It was an hour. Yeah. Right? It was we didn't even notice the hour had gone by and we were interacting. And as we are all so used to talking on Zoom now, the idea that there was no, it was fun. Am I going to want to spend the rest of my career operating and interacting like that? No, I'm not. Would I be interested, and am I now interested in attending a show? And for that matter, running a show in this sort of virtual world? Yeah, I am. I think it's going to be interesting. It's going to be fun. And at the same time, we can all hope and pray that the next PM Grow is going to be in person again.
Yeah,
fingers crossed. Exactly.
On that note, John, how can people register for the virtual PM Grow Summit in 2021?
Great. Yeah. For information and for ticket sales, you can go to pmgrowsummit.com. The show is going to be January 20th to 22nd, although it's going to open up a little early so that exhibitors can build their booths, which we're going to work through them with, and for people to go in and check it out and build their avatars and learn how to use stuff. We don't want to dump you in and have you learn everything in 5 seconds and then go straight to the auditorium. But January 20th to 22nd, and then, of course, afterwards, the content is going to be available for, quite some time. We still have stuff available from PM Grow 2017 online. So, don't worry about seeing all the content. You're going to be able to catch up.